My name's Galen Satterley. I help run a family business, Breadtopia. Every week we introduce ourselves and I say part owner of Breadtopia, the collective, the Bakehouse. And it's just kind of confusing and sort of like what the heck's going on. And so when Bob asked me to do this talk, it was a really great way to evaluate and kind of step back from the day-to-day workings of, running three businesses and understanding like what we're actually doing, how we're doing, and, how we can move forward. And so what I'll try to do is help you guys understand the differences in the businesses and then also how they interact with each other. And we'll go from there. And then, of course, at any point, ask questions. That'd be really good. Okay, so we have Breadtopia, Bakehouse, and Collective. Breadtopia is it's an e-commerce business, flour mill, and a baking educator. The education portion is online. Eric started doing videos back in the early stages of YouTube when things were pixelated and grainy and just no one really knew what was going on. But he fortunately got in early on and taught people how to bake with sourdough starter, bake bread at home. And so that, from there, that just blossomed into what it is today. The collective is it's a business incubator and building management. So we decided to create a secondary company that would own the building on 400 North 2nd Street, right by where you go under the overpass on 2nd Street, so that we could facilitate other small businesses, primarily around food manufacturing, food creation. And so we started that business, so we own that business as well. And then as we renovated out the old Harbor Brush building and started getting into finding people to rent the space within this 40,000 square foot building, we tried to get other small bakeries to come in, and we would just let them do their business. And we would just help any type of marketing, any type of distribution, but no one really wanted to do it. So we ended up just creating it ourselves. And we found a need for it. We found a reason to have a retail space and a bakery and a cafe that supports Breadtopia, but also supports the collective family. So within Breadtopia, it's like I said, an e-commerce store, baking educator, designer of branded baking equipment and supplies. We are a flour mill. We have an organic certification for the flour mill, but we also bought a secondary stone mill so that we can mill grain that is not certified organic without screwing up an entire operation. So basically, we could, if a farm is in transition into organics, we could mill on that special mill. If the grain is regeneratively grown but not organic, again, we can go through that system. It really opens up the door to a lot more farmers and the ability to grow grains within whatever stage they're at within the certifications.
Is there a picture of the mill or is any of that?
That would have been great, wouldn't it?
But you can have a tour anytime, though.
Yeah, I can certainly give you a tour.
But how big is it?
So it's the mill that we use with the organic grains is I think it's a 32-inch stone. So it's about that big, about that tall. And we vacuum the flour that's milled on the stone mill up into two different sifters. One's a whole grain sifter, one's a high extraction sifter. Creates two different types of flour, and then it vacuums out into a deposit. So
How many pounds or tons or whatever can it process?
yeah, so the organic mill could when we bought it, they said I think it was around 250 pounds an hour, but really it's somewhere in the 150 to low 200s based
Per
upon
hour.
per hour. Yeah. And then the other mill is about 45 pounds per hour. It's real slow.
You package it into the customer's package or?
Yeah, so we pack it into multiple sized bags. We mill on demand, meaning that an order comes in through our website. We mill that fresh so that it is the best. It's going to be the best flour you can get. It's not sitting on a shelf. The oils are not breaking down. It's not becoming rancid. So that's one of the main features of our mill is the on-demand milling. So we do small runs, and so we're not backstocking a lot of flour. Then we also just put in a small grains cleaner and processor. I'll explain that a little bit further. We were fortunate enough to become the North American distributor for Mock Mill, which is a home flour mill. So that encourages people to mill fresh flour in their home when they want to bake. So, and then we are a sourdough starter manufacturer as well. So we package, we keep a sourdough starter, healthy, and then we divide it up and package it into either a live or a dry starter that we ship all over the world. How old is the starter, Eric? Would you say?
I always tell people, as they look at it, it's 300 million years old. I think this is
Oh, yeah. Pretty old.
19 years.
Not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
300 million plus 19, right?
So the Bakehouse is it's a bakery specialized in sourdough baking. Reason behind that is the health properties of sourdough. Sourdough culture starts the digestion process of the flour, those complex starches. So your body has an easier time breaking down the gluten and digestible. We do bread, pastries, English muffin, waffles. We're baked goods manufacturer for distribution, cafe, Monday through Friday. So coffee and tea, and then retail storefront that focuses on locally made products. And then we were doing pizza nights, but then just based on staffing and sort of a waning customer base, we decided to close that down. But there's plans for that, so it's not going to go to waste. So the collective is, like I said, a building management business incubator. We have a kitchen that is we built out for food preservation using freeze dryers, which was donated by the SLC. And then we have a future site for the food waste composting prototype, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well. So the business is operating in our facility. Is Breadtopia, Bakehouse, Taco Dreams, Hedge Apple Kombucha, Marmalade Sky, which is a gluten-free bakery, Deep Green Machine, which is a professional makerspace, Nouveau Botanical Syrup, and Spinella Boards.
What does deep green refer to?
That is Frank.
Chichelet.
Yes, his business.
What do they make? Green things?
Well, no, he basically is a collection of tools like CNC router, wood tools that at some point I believe he's trying to make into a lending library. So you can come in, use the tools, rent them out. Currently, they have
got a plasma cutter there, so it's pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, And then currently they've got a ceramics studio, like several wheels, and they do classes like every month, I think.
So they do contract manufacturing.
I don't, I usually they do,
They
Yeah, a
do.
little bit.
He does, absolutely, yes.
yeah. Businesses associated with the collective, we have Tea Light Teas, which is a local tea manufacturer, Scream Ice Cream, Pickle Creek, Too Pretty to Burn, Hungry Camel, Local Crop, Savor on the Rise, and Great River Maple. A lot of those products we sell or use in our food manufacturing, but some of them we sell in our retail space. So moving on to like the actual, the thing that's been the project that really we think is going to change Southeast Iowa or the Midwest. And going through this, breaking this down to, the reality of what we've already accomplished and what sort of we're up against as far as, farmland being used in, appropriate ways. Kind of come to some realizations that very eye-opening. So, but I'll get into that. So our objectives for small grains is to source 50% of our annual wheat, rye, and corn supply from farmers located in Iowa. That is a goal. Wheat is not typically grown in Iowa due to climate conditions, due to soil conditions, but it's not out of the question because about 100 years ago they would work their winter wheats into the crop rotation, and so it is possible. We just have to adapt the farming and the cycles with which the farmer is operating in. So we would ideally source 95% of our wheat, rye, and corn from the Midwest. We are hoping to collaborate directly with farmers who are organically certified or engage in regenerative farming practices. Currently, we're working on conducting tests on all grain flour to ensure nutritional integrity, optimal baking performance, and that they are free from pesticides, herbicides, toxins. And then we take that information, that data, and share it with our customers so they can, so we're transparent in what we're selling them as a food source, and then the integrity of the product as well. And that's been a bit of an eye opener because there are labs locally that will test grain. It is incredibly expensive, and it basically is. It's hard to work that price into the actual final price of the grain when you're trying to, be competitive in the grain market. So it's been a bit of a search to find labs that will be cost effective, do enough sample testing to make it worthwhile for us, and then also do testing in the specific things that we need for, baking performance, or does it have, these certain toxins or pesticide drift. Actually, really right now, actually a couple of weeks ago at the Iowa State University just opened up a seed lab where they had a seed lab, but they opened it up to small grains to test for the exact stuff we're looking for. So that is kind of opened the door for that testing.
You said it was eye-opening. What did you learn, or what?
I learned how much I didn't know. There's everything. So obviously we know that pesticides are used, herbicides are used on,
Wow.
throughout Iowa, right? Well, I didn't know that there was 4 variations of Roundup, and that you have to test specifically for each one of those, just Roundup. Then you have the other pesticide that will, not as bad as Roundup, but will have a greater drift into other things. So your farm could be certified organic, and let's just say it's 10 miles away, and this other farm is using this specific pesticide. Wind shifts perfectly, and that drift can happen. So the issue that we have with organic certification is that your best practices are all done in, in preparation and when you handle the material, but there's no actual testing of the specific grain to understand what is in that grain, what's on the outside, what's on the inside. And so that's what we are planning to do, is have those tests done specifically for these problems that we face in our
You're
region.
gonna do it yourself? You're
No.
gonna do the testing yourself?
No, we've sent it to a lab. Although we just had a meeting about a infrared spectrometer that we would have in hand that we could test based on certain curves, on previous tests, on sampling, and so that was another thing that I didn't have any idea about to begin with. And then it opened up the door to understand like how much goes into each testing and how much it's going to cost, So yeah, my action plan was pretty simple. Farmers grow the grain. We buy the grain from the farmer. We sell the grain to make flour. It's a really simple 1, 2, 3 process. But in actuality, it becomes it becomes a lifelong venture. So, we had to find a farmer that is open to experimenting with a certain amount of their land, right? So they're not going to bet their entire farm on the fact that we want them to grow a specific type of wheat. Bad year and the farm collapses. So we need to, find a farmer that's willing to experiment with an acre or two to begin with. And then as we build data points, as we understand how that wheat is going to be affected by certain climate shifts and soil changes, how that's going to actually, how we can then scale up from there. So and then before they even plant it in the ground, we need to agree on a rough price and quantity of the grain, because the farmer doesn't really want to go, say, yeah, sure, I'll just plant whatever you want, and hopefully it works out, and then we'll negotiate a price later on. So we have to give them a ballpark of what we think we can sell, provided that it hits these certain criteria, and then on a rough price, so they can say this is going to be worth actually pursuing. So then we need to source viable certified seed. If they're certified organic, you have to have the seed certified. Then there's learning about the timing and the location of planting the seeds. The farmer provides updates throughout the year regarding the assessment of the process or progress. And then all this stuff happens. So, so after harvest, we process the grain by dehulling, cleaning, excuse me, and bulk bagging. So this is the other thing we ran into. So we had a farmer locally that grew 2 types of grain for us, or 2 types of wheat for us. And there's not a dehuller in our state that will dehull wheat. And essentially dehulling is taking out the outer shell of the grain so that you can take the grain and then mill it into flour. So what do? We, after searching everywhere and looking at everything, we found a place in South Dakota. And then we started assessing how much it costs to take, 20,000 pounds of grain from Southeast Iowa, ship it up to South Dakota, have it cleaned and processed, what that costs, and then ship it back down to Southeast Iowa to then sell, which didn't make it worth it. So then we had to assess, okay, well, what does it cost to have a dehulling operation? And what does it take to do that? And so that's when we decided, okay, we're just going to take this in-house, buy a dehuller, buy a cleaner, buy a scraper, and then all the problems that go into having a full-scale cleaning operation, we had to figure out as well. But now we do. So now we have an operation where we can dehull, clean, and process small grains. But it's not perfect yet because certain grains have, weed seeds or small, flecks of, rock. And so we need to then look at, getting this next cleaning device. Is that worth it? Then we decide on how, how much grain the farmer should reserve for planting for next year and revisit action two, which is how much do you want us to plant? What do you think our price is going to be? Then we have to arrange shipping, receiving, logistics for 10 to 30,000 pounds of grain. Input the grain into our custom grain inventory management system, which was built out by one of our owners several years ago when we realized we don't have any tracking for any of our grains. So now we do. Create recipes that highlight the unique qualities of the grain. Conduct an interview and draft a biography about the farmer and for customer engagement. Take photographs of the grain, various flours. The product pages developed so we can sell the grain and flour. Design and print labels for the product bags. Package and store the grain for order fulfillment or mill flour on demand for optimal freshness, tastiness. Hope that sales are strong. Hope that we actually sell the stuff. And then deal with all the questions on customer service end. So the
That's
fact
all
that,
what you do, right?
what's that? Oh God, no, I got out of customer service early on. That is a thankless job, but it is so critical. So none of this would be possible without having the team that we have, and we have an incredible team now, and it's taken years to build this team. So even though this is incredibly daunting to look at and was daunting to write out, this is all functioning now because we have this group of people that are dedicated towards this greater goal, and we are, successful at it currently, which is great. So this was the really, really eye-opening thing when I had to look at what we're doing and how we're doing. So Breadtopia is, very successful currently. We are currently growing year on year, and that's fantastic. We put a lot of time and energy into our grain and flour and selling the grain mills and to people to use in their home. And so I ran the numbers, which, we in 24 we sold 220,000 pounds of wheat and grain, and then 100,000 pounds of white flour. And the reason we have white flour is because people are accustomed to having high performance breads or pastries, and having any bit of bran or germ in the whole grain flour makes performance a little more complicated on how you use the dough. So we buy our white flour and repackage it and sell it. So all that's, that seems like really good numbers. 1 acre of farmland is equal to about 3,000 pounds of wheat. And so as great as we think we're doing, we're only looking at about 75 acres of grain sold in 24 and 42 acres of what would be white flour. And so in the organic farmland in Iowa, we have 170,000 acres being farmed, and the total farmland in Iowa is 30 million. So we're not even on the radar as far as being helpful towards the conversion of conventional growing to regenerative growing, organic growing, farmers that can grow something that they're going to get a higher price for their commodities so that they can pay their bills and keep the farms going. So that was really kind of, wouldn't say disheartening, but it is definitely an eye-opener. It's a reality check. So what do we do? So this is where I look towards the Bakehouse. And so what we can do is, craft, we can make bread from locally sourced grains. milled by Breadtopia. We can make fresh for Southeast Iowa, and we can make frozen or refrigerated and ship it all over the country. And that will increase our grain usage. Pastry is the same thing, available fresh locally, frozen. We can go nationally and desserts as well. So because we are a small bakery, we have 5 employees, and that is very small for a bakery. We need to construct we need to build out the last commercial kitchen we have space for. That's going to maximize production. That's going to, give us more opportunity or more space to make a larger variety of products. Partner with other Iowa bakeries and sell that under the Bakehouse brand. And that is essentially collaborating with other bakeries throughout the state that will be willing to use locally sourced grains from Breadtopia or through Breadtopia. And then they would basically manufacture it for us, package it under the Breadtopia or Bakehouse name, and then highlight their bakery wherever the locations are. And then got to create a new website so we can sell nationally.
Ready when you are.
I know.
Ready to go.
So the products that are in R&D, 40 flavors of English muffins, which is completed. 40 flavors of sourdough waffles, completed. Sourdough focaccia, that's also completed. 3 new sourdough breads, done. Sourdough croissant, that's going to be a bit of a mountain to climb, but the outcome can be extremely satisfying. Sourdough cinnamon roll, 4 flavors of sourdough bagels. We found a bakery in forgot where they are, but they are a bakery they're doing sourdough bagels, so they will contract out with them. Breadtopia will sell them the milled locally sourced flour, and then they will make the bagels and sell that to the Bakehouse, who will then sell on nationally. Sourdough crackers, frozen sourdough pizza. That's basically taking our pizza recipes, but taking it into a frozen, ready to eat pizza from home. Sourdough donuts, sourdough rolls, sourdough bagel bun or burger buns, eclairs, but that's done. 5 flavors of biscotti and sourdough baking mixes. So with all that, it'd be about 55 product variants. And then if we were to get those products into the 153 IV stores in Iowa and have, moderate sales within each store, the Bakehouse would only be using about 33 acres of locally grown grain. So this is kind of all right, no matter how much we are actually being able to do or accomplish, we're still not making the dent into the helping the farmer or giving the farmer opportunity for a really robust market so they can convert from conventional to better crop rotation grains. And so that's kind of what we came to realization. So that made me take a step back and look at what can we provide? How can we make the biggest impact for our small town, our area, our state? And so through Breadtopia, I think we could do we can provide grain cleaning and milling services for farmers. So a farmer doesn't necessarily, they grow a certain type of wheat, grain, and Breadtopia doesn't have the capacity to purchase all of that. Well, there are other markets out there, but they have to get their grain cleaned, or they have a contract with a local school where they'll grow the grain and then we process it as flour. And we basically ship it back to them and they deal directly with their customers. So that sort of opens up more markets for farmers. Educate. So Breadtopia is founded on free education, free information. And through that information, we have been able to sell all of our products and our grain and our flour. So let's go back to what we did best and what we do best. And so that just
Educate who though?
educate.
The farmers or the,
No, I mean, when we have enough data points for the grain and flour, yes, we can educate farmers on what they can grow, when they can grow, how it works in the crop rotation. But it's mainly for home bakers, home pastry chefs, or small bakeries that, need to know, yeah, so it's mainly, that is our customer, Breadtopia's customer base is in-home, do-it-yourself type of people. The Bakehouse can encourage nutritious and delicious baking and show that it can be a profitable business. So, which hopefully spurs on more bakeries throughout our area and throughout the country. Collaborate with organizations that advocate for food as medicine, such as Carla. We had her talk, I think, several months ago.
Yep.
So the collective provide an education kitchen studio for in-person classes as well as online classes. Complete the food waste composting project and process all of the food waste created in our building. So that is what brings us to the food waste project. So Breadtopia, when they mill flour, your byproducts are flour and bran. Bran is a mill waste product. So we used to sell it to professional proteins, which would turn it into hog feed. But we started creating so much mill waste that they couldn't actually take it, right? So what do we do with it? A couple of years ago, Rachel Hillier brought the bokashi process to my attention, and we worked out some of the details. But basically, you take the bran from the mill waste and create a vehicle for an organism that will, when it's placed on food scraps, whether it's anything from lettuce to meat, will break down, essentially ferment that food and break it down into two different byproducts. One is a bio-tea and a bio-pulp. The bio-pulp is something that can be added to an aerated composting system. So you take bokashi, you take our grain cleaning waste, and you take yard waste, and you combine those two in an aerated composting system. And at the end of it, you have healthy, viable compost that you can either take to just give to gardeners, give to the garden project, sell it further to someone that wanted to have a worm casting business or a soil business, and they need material to build that soil. So essentially, we're closing the loop on our production and waste by doing this. And so we can take all the food waste from Taco Dreams and all the food waste from the Bakehouse, process it through this using Breadtopia's mill waste, and then we come out with a viable, possibly sellable product, but at least a product that will not go into the landfills. It will be used to create more food. So if that's not enough, this is what I would like to see in the next 3 years. And again, these are just pipe dreams, right? So Love to see a fermentation festival or host a fermentation festival. So that's everything from sourdough to kombucha to yogurt to cheese to bokashi to you name it. Anything, basically anything good is fermented, or anything fermented is good. And we would love to have a festival that, you know, showcased all of those different things and brought in large groups of people into town, which encourages business and, you know, outside people spending money. Grain Festival is a similar thing. It would just be a, you know, an educational event. It would be classes to learn how to make a specific type of noodle or bake a specific type of bread, and have hands-on classes to further the education and further the promotion of, you know, good, healthy foods. Education Kitchen Studio, we're kind of in the mix. You got to give me the go-ahead, because Eric is currently making videos for online videos in this kitchen space, which is
Which kitchen's right?
in the one that we built out in our building. So it's essentially a studio kitchen, and you know, the rest of it, we need to build out tables, and then we need to start, you know, scheduling classes and bringing in professionals to do that sort of thing. Work closely with the food web. It's another way to promote our business, but also promote the use of small grains within our community. And then I'm always game for another project beyond that. So if that's kind of how the last 5 years have been going, you know, have a plan of action, have an idea of where we want to take our business, and then something kind of just falls into our lap, and we can evaluate that and see it as an opportunity, or we can say, no, it's just beyond our scope, we can't do that. But, you know, through generally through problems, there are solutions, and solutions are created or give opportunity. And that's kind of where I wanted to leave that open in case anything else falls into our lap. Okay. So thank you for listening.
Really, can stay up here for a moment.
Yes.
Something really just flashed in my awareness as I heard Galen talking. You know, ecosystems develop, and systems develop from little things, right? Anyone seen an acorn? Seen an acorn, and anyone seen 100-foot oak tree? An acorn doesn't look like much, but you put it in the ground, wait for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and you got a 100-foot tree, 60-foot tree. This is exactly what's happening. And I think we had a recording of you last year. How many people were there? Anyone here? Yeah. The difference is just completely shocking. In 1 year, it is a shocking difference in scope and development. And as I was hearing Galen speak, we've got the food web going, and we've got the beginnings of at-scale produce. And we're not talking about tens of acres, we're talking about potentially hundreds and hundreds of acres. What's driving that is in order for the next generation to be healthier than our generation, and if it isn't, we're all in really deep trouble. We need to move from 15% consumption of fruits and vegetables in our diet to 30. That is 1 million acres around the country that would be devoted to produce and fruit production that is not currently in production. That's the scale that's going to be needed. We have I just happened to meet a whole bunch of homesteaders lately. So now we've got a budding Southeast Iowa Homestead Association. The first on-farm picnic with about 6 or 7 or 8 people is now being planned. That just happened because I happened to meet a couple of homesteaders for the last couple of weeks. We have David's work with subsistence garden rather than just, watery fruits and vegetables, which are great, but developing an entire dietary regime based on a 30 by 40 foot plot Can you see a pattern here? And what you all are doing, I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing. And I want us to celebrate what we're able to create by having a venue like this, by being together and having some creativity and having no boundaries and having TBTs or TBDs, right? You know, that's the TBD is actually possibly the most important thing among all important things. So Galen, again, thank you.
Oh,
Very, very much.